Hello folks, welcome to another G-Man Projects project. This project is a remote-controlled, USB-powered Death Star desk lamp. It's a pretty fun build with lots of unique printing and assembly features, which I'll get to shortly. There are two slightly different variants of this model, depending on whether you get the Maker World kit or you use a generic USB LED strip light. On the left here, you can see the Maker World variant with base pieces to house the control board of the KA001 or KA002 lights. You'll also need a USB male to female extension cable for this. On the right here is a generic variant where the base just allows for a USB cable to pass through it. I do recommend the Maker World lights. They are much brighter and have way more functionality than the typical RGB strip lights. The main cool thing is that they can display multiple colours at the same time, and you have loads of control over that through an app as opposed to a small remote. In terms of the screws, again there are a few options available. The first two shown here are the Maker World BT3 10mm screws, and on the right here we have a number 4 by 3/8 inch self-tapping screw. They are basically the same size, however again I do recommend the Maker World option. As you can see with the number 4 screw, they taper off at the end, and that actually means you lose a good 30% of the threads because that section of it doesn't actually screw into any plastic. So the Maker World screws are way better here and provide much more screwage. Okay, so let's begin. This is roughly all the stuff you should have, all the printed bits, although I'm currently showing both versions here. The light, a pack of screws, you'll also need a pair of scissors and a screwdriver appropriate for the screws. Not shown here though, but highly recommended, is some flush side cutters. In terms of print configuration, if you are using the MakerWord profile, everything should be set up good to go. Otherwise, all parts are provided in their recommended print orientation already, and most things can be printed in a standard profile with no support except for the following. The two outer shells will need quite a lot of support, and have found thin tree supports work the best. This part will also need some standard supports. These white shells are where things get a bit more complicated. They can't just be printed in vase mode because they have a bottom face which actually serves a purpose. So you need to create a multi-profile or multi-step print configuration where you print one bottom face for the first layer, then the rest of the layers you print with 0 top, 0 bottom faces, 1 wall and 0 infill. Here is my setup in Bamboo Studio, which should be very similar to Prusa Slicer or any other slicer hopefully. Also importantly is to turn off anything like elephant foot compensation and maybe turn up the first layer extrusion multiplier a little bit, just to make sure you get a good solid thin layer and good connection to the rest of the shell. Okay, let's do something. Let's remove all the support from the two outer shells. Once done, use the side cutters to just go around and cut off any bits of plastic that is sticking out or hanging from the underside of that top surface where it didn't quite sit on the supports properly. So an important thing to mention here is that a lot of the parts line up in a very specific way, and there's identifiers on the parts to kind of show you how things line up. So for starters, on the white shells, only one of the 4 segments has these additional 2 dots each side. This is where we need to get some scissors and carefully cut down the straight channel in the middle. Do the same on the other shell, mounting again where the 2 dots are. A little bit of terminology to explain. When I talk about the top shell or the top white piece, I'm referring to the pieces that have the dish or the laser part. The bottom pieces do not have that. So with the top white piece, you want to fold it in slightly on itself as shown, then pick up the top shell, find the alignment triangle, which is on one of the 4 pillars, and carefully insert the white piece as shown. Then slowly work your way around, unravelling and gently pressing the white into the top shell. You should hear some nice clicky noises as the white clips into the shell properly. Once done, have a good look and feel around and give it all a nice firm press and make sure there are no gaps visible between the shell and the white bit. Assemble the bottom shell in the same way and you should end up with a pair of nice looking Death Star domes. Let's put them aside for later. Next up, we're going to assemble the inner LED core, so you need to unravel your lights all the way to the end. Grab this tube looking part and feed the lights through the wider end and out through the smaller hole at the other side. Can be a little tricky as I'm demonstrating, but once you've done it you want to pull the lights all the way through until you get to the wire. Now you need to start peeling off a protective layer on the sticky side of the LED strips and stick it to the plastic tube. Start where the light comes through the hole and be careful where the LED strip bends around the plastic. It should be bent along one of the cut lines or dedicated bend line so none of the LEDs or resistors get damaged. Now work your way around, peeling off the adhesive and sticking the LEDs to the tube in a spiral shape. When there's no more space, just cut off any of the remaining lights along the snip lines on the LEDs. I would recommend wrapping some sellotape around the lights as well, just to prevent them from peeling off over time. Grab the top shell and the other piece you see here called top cap inner. It's a little difficult to see in the video, but there is an alignment triangle on this piece. This needs to face the alignment triangle on the shell. Push this piece down into the shell. If it is the right way around, you should see and feel all the little hooks press into the gaps in the white bit. Now grab a piece called top cap and push it into the top. This doesn't need to go in with any particular alignment. Now we need to screw the light tube we made earlier into the top cap with 4 screws. I forgot to highlight here that there is an alignment triangle on this piece too, and as usual this needs to point to the triangle on the top shell when you screw it in. I don't have a magnetic screwdriver suitable for these Maker World screws, so I need to insert them into a tube sideways first.
Wait.
This should all be nice and sturdy now, and the white near the top should be pushed firmly against the shell with no gaps or movement. Push the 8 little pins into the 8 holes in the top shell. Make sure they also go through the holes in the white part. Now grab the bottom shell and turn it so you have both the alignment triangles lined up, then push the shells together. If everything is lined up properly, you should see the bottom white part fit nicely into the hooks on the light tube, just like the top cap did earlier. Make sure there are no gaps where the 2 shells meet. You might need to use a thin tool to give the pins a bit of a nudge into position. I don't know why I paused and zoomed here. Grab this piece called bottom cap and turn it to align properly with the arrow here on the light tube and the arrow here. Place the cap onto a Death Star, making sure to run the cable through the hole in the middle. Screw in the bottom cap with 5 of the screws. Remove all the supports from this part called base mount. Make sure to get all the little bits of support off, otherwise it won't fit properly into another part. This is said of a part and is either base top KA002 or base top cable depending on your lights. For KA002, make sure you line up the pillars as shown here. Clip these parts together by pressing the 3 corners in. You should hear and feel some nice clicks. Make note of where the dish is on the main part. The cable exit wants to be at the opposite side so the cable will come out the back. Push the base part over the bottom cap, lining up the pillars for the screws. Screw the base in with 3 of the screws. For a standard USB cable light, you can ignore this next bit. For KA001 or KA002 lights, now you need to plug the LEDs into the control board. Carefully wrap the cable round and push the control board onto the pillars for it. Ensure the QA code is upright and visible. While holding the control board in place, push the remaining piece of the base over and clip it into place. This base is designed so you don't need to print it with supports in the screw holes. This is achieved by having one thin layer covering the hole. It is easier at this point to puncture through these holes with a small screwdriver. Screw the base together with the remaining 4 screws. And that is it. Thank you if you made it to the end. Please let me know how you got on, and don't forget to tag me in my various socials if you plan on showing off your build. Also, please do like and subscribe if you like this, because I will be doing a load more projects in the future. And if you do want to go that extra mile, I do have a Patreon you can support me at, which would be amazing. Well, thanks for stopping by, and I'll see you in the next one.